Taverns. Most of us have too much social anxiety to go to real taverns, so instead we create fantastical environments so we can act out as if we go to taverns. And since most of us don't have any or little experience with real taverns, Monte Games has helped us out by creating a dozen rules for tavern etiquette. Etiquette. Is that a etiquette? Etiquette. Hi there fellow role gamers and playmasters, my name is Mr. Tarask, and today I want to talk again about one of, probably the best RPG book ever written, proving again that it is one of, if not the best RPG book ever written. Yes, I'm talking about Ptolus once again, because I was browsing through this book because of my campaign. I'm playing a campaign, I'm running a campaign in the Monte Games setting, Ptolus, using the Tales of the Valiant by Kobold Press rule set. So it is kind of like a hybrid game of like Tales of the Valiant and Monte Games setting stuff. It is amazing, it is great, it is a lot of fun, and I was browsing through this, looking for like places to go and adventures and places of interest, and just preparing my campaign, and I stumbled upon something really cool, and that is this right here, a dozen rules of tavern etiquette, on page 205, if I'm not mistaken, of the Ptolus setting book for both 5e and or the Cypher system. And the reason I want to talk about this is not any particular reason, actually. I just thought it was really cool, and I was reading it, and I think it's really cool to add something like this in a setting book, in a book that talks about a setting and has like all kinds of markets and all kinds of temples and all kinds of squares and inns and taverns and streets and shops and NPCs. It's, after all, a 666 pages thick book, so there's a lot of it. Having like a confined page that talks about rules, kinda, which aren't really rules per se, but kind of like vague guidelines for when you go to a tavern, not only adds to the book, it makes for a very fun read, but also it invites a lot of really cool role playing, because a lot of really funny situations can come out of this kind of stuff. So let's just like scroll through this really quickly. Again, I'm doing a complete video series on this book, on Ptolus, where I talk about like generally what it is and all that stuff, but I also zoom into some of the cool stuff that is in here. So it is my overly long, multiple videos, Ptolus love letter / setting review, whatever you want to call it. Now, a dozen rules for tavern etiquette. Like Monte Games says, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Let's see if you guys can still see this, because nope, that's not good. I'm gonna do it like this then. Right, this should work. The player characters are likely to spend a lot of their time in Ptolus, in taverns, restaurants, and such places. While all these establishments are different, and activities within them vary greatly depending on the quality of the place and its clientele, a few general rules usually apply. Many of these guidelines carry over to situations outside a tavern as well. Really cool stuff. Before we go into this, by the way, I have a backer kit campaign that is launching next week together with Etiquette, the best Cypher system YouTuber out there, who's creating a Cypher system version of Hymn of the Dragonflower, an adventure for 5th edition by me and Dot Steverson and JVC Perry. We're translating that to the Cypher system, but we need funds for that, and we want to raise 4,000 euros. If you go to the link in the description below and you sign up, you can back in the first 72 hours and get yourself a free adventure in the form of this one. Isle of the Dreaded Accursed for the Cypher system by Mr. Tarask, JVC Perry, and Etiquette. So yeah, this is a Cypher system adventure, fantasy adventure, and the one you are about to support is a loose prologue to that. So you can start playing with that one and then go directly into this one, and you will have hours and hours and hours and sessions upon sessions of fun playing the Cypher system. Now, let's get to business. There's some really cool stuff in here. So there's 12 rules, not really rules again, but some stuff that's really funny. Forms of address. One should address a stranger as sir or miss or friend if the speaker is uncertain of the stranger's gender. Most people consider it offensive to address others by their species, saying, "Hey human," or "What you got there, elf?" I like that kind of stuff. For me, is common sense, and a lot of my players actually do that kind of stuff. A lot of my players are like, hey, orc, blah, 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 and they start talking to that orc, but they like address them with orc, which is like really, 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 yeah, it's just not like really that. It's offensive, kind of, in a way. It's not really offensive. It's not meant offensive, but it's also not, like, really cool to do that, right? If you do that in the real world, you might get your face punched in. So if you do that in a fantastical world, you might get your face cut off, basically. So I often punish my players, which is a strong word. I often get, like, a role-playing moment out of that as a GM. For doing that. Hey, orc, do you want to join us on a quest? And the orc is like, what the fuck do you want, man? And he just like starts talking smack back to them because they addressed him in a completely wrong way. So that's a cool thing to have. Prices. Haggling is expected in the North Market and acceptable in the South Market, but not in taverns and restaurants. Pay the price. This is like a really cool one. Turning one's empty mug upside down on the bar. So you take your mug and you're like, poof, you put it on the bar. Means I am tougher than anyone in this room. And it is generally how fights start, basically. You are drinking your ass off. You're half wasted and half sober. So you decide, like, oh, there's a guy over there that I want to fight, right? So I'm going to put my thinker upside down on the bar, and then the guy will probably be like, I'm going to fight that dude, and I'm going to get my face punched in. Basically. I think that is really cool stuff. And invites really cool role-playing moments, especially if the players don't notice, and you can have like a bar fight start out that way, or they're talking to somebody at the bar and they were kind of offensive to them or whatever. They talked about, hey, orc, do you want to join our party? And the orc is like, they take their tankard, they turn it upside down and then look at the players, and the players like, what does that even mean? And then the orc just starts attacking them, and then after the fight, they find out what it meant, right? Which brings us to bar fights. Fighting is discouraged in most taverns, simply because of the damage it causes to furnishings and the disruption it causes to business. Duh. The duh is ad-lib, by the way. Most taverns have a back alley or a similar unofficial designated place to which the bartender or server will encourage those about the fight to adjourn. I like the way this is written. This is like really... It's about a fight, like it's about a bar fight, something that is in the normal world is completely discouraged, but they write it as if it is a law. They write it like most taverns have a back alley or similar unofficial designated place to which the bartender is like reading baseball rules, right? It's like reading that kind of stuff. And the bar fighter often says, take it out behind the privy, they might say, which is cool. So all of this like goes like you can address somebody in a wrong way and then they turn over their tankard. It starts a bar fight, right? 0.5, don't insult the food. Never do that. 6, gratuities, that's tipping, are expected in all taverns and restaurants. Over-tipping a server, however, can be taken as an insult to the server or even the other patrons, if they are aware of it. It can also cause jealousies among the employees. So that's a weird one, right? Over-tipping can be taken as an insult. I have a hard time reading into why that would be. If you know why that could be taken as an insult, please indulge me in the comments below, because I want to know, because I want to use that in my games probably. There are no laws against public drunkenness in Ptolus. There are no limits in how much one can imbibe, or no concept of liability for the tavern if a drunk patron commits a crime after being served. However, the City Watch knows very well that inebriated people cause trouble, so they patrol areas around taverns closely, particularly as the night wanes and drunk patrons stagger home. So it is basically, there's a lot of like we say in Belgium, there's a lot of like blue on the streets. I don't know if that's an English expression in Belgium, like the cops wear blue, so we say there's a lot of blue on the street, which there often is during night times. While many substances, like most alcoholic beverages, for example, are perfectly legal in Ptolus, some dangerous or mind-altering substances are controlled. A wizard on hallucinations drugs can become a danger to the entire city. Yes, it can. Just imagine, like, again, this is like they go to a tavern, right? And you know, as a game master, like, they go to a tavern, you have nothing prepared, right? And you're like, oh shit, they're in the tavern. Okay, there's this guy, he has mushrooms, right? And they take mushrooms and they go completely batshit crazy. There might be a person in your party that has wild magic, and suddenly they start spinning out wild magic everywhere because they think there is I don't know, the fountain in the middle of the square came to life and it's attacking people, so they start shooting at the fountain, but at the same time they have to do wild magic rolls. That stuff can become really funny really quickly. Gambling itself is not illegal. However, heavy taxes on gambling earnings mean that most people want to play games of chance do so in the sly. This is a really cool one for when your players just happened to come into Ptolus. They've seen some of the city, they were walking around, and like, oh, it's a cool city, nice buildings, just clean streets, all of that stuff. And then they get into like a poker game, maybe. They are like, oh, is there any gambling in this tavern? You say, yeah, there's a game of chance right there, you can go there. And yeah, they start gambling, okay, they win like, I don't know, 1,000 gold pieces, just top of my head, 1,000 gold pieces. And then, like, the next day, this dude shows up. He's from the city, and he's like, hey, you won 1,000 gold pieces. Yes, we did. I want 300 of that, because there's 30% taxes on gambling. The players were like, what? Which, in a way, would be really cool role-playing, because they could make, like, enemies towards the city at that point, or they just pay up, right? Or they could make enemies towards the city, but also it builds kind of like the idea of the city, because Ptolus is a really thriving city with like a lot of like industrial stuff going on. Where does Ptolus get the money to become this thriving city? It is with high taxes on gambling. So this kind of like helps shape the world of Ptolus by just like having this opportunity for you as a GM to introduce like a tax man that shows up the next day and wants 300 gold pieces. Maybe they already spent those 1,000 gold pieces, I don't know, on hookers and booze. I don't know. Hookers and booze. But that's not the problem of the tax man. The tax man won $300. And they're like, we don't have $300. All we have is a headache, right? So the tax man is like, you know what? I might excuse these $300 if you go out and do this for me. Bam, you got a quest right there. That's how you use these little bits of text by Monte Games, and Monte Games is really good at this kind of stuff. You use these little bits of text and use that to keep the game going, right? You just send them towards a quest that they would have done otherwise as well. You had other ways of introducing said quests, but it is just a cool way of doing it. If they happen to go brothels, prostitution, likewise, is not illegal, but most street prostitutes want to avoid paying taxes. There's a number of legal brothels in the city. The owners pay their taxes and are treated mostly like any other merchants. Spells in bars. Spellcasting is often prohibited in taverns, in virtually all of them, save perhaps Danbury's Tavern. I can click this and then it takes me to Danbury's Tavern, by the way. Anything more powerful than a harmless cantrip or a spell cast by a bard entertainer to improve their performance is considered impolite and ostentatious at best, and offensive or insidious at worst. Man, this is written so well. A divinatory spell cast among strangers is a quick way to start a fight. Yeah, somebody like casts some kind of like alter memory kind of thing on me, and I know about that, I'm gonna smack him in the face. That's basically what happens then. Politics and religion. Among friends, religion is not a forbidden subject, but it can be a touchy thing to bring up with strangers. Politics, on the other hand, is not a topic people avoid, since there is not a variety of opinions to be held on the subject. One can safely assume that most bad patrons hold a contradictory belief that those in power should remain in power, but okay, so I like the religion part because that is so true. Religion is always like a really hard subject. Like when you're sitting around like with 3 or 4 friends around a table, and one is like believes in real life, like one is a Muslim and the other one is a Christian and whatever. you can start talking about that, and that often works really well and could lead to like really cool conversations, by the way. But do that in a public place, that could lead to really weird situations. And especially in fantastical settings, I think that is something really cool. If they're like, by the god of blah, 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 and then another person is, that is not a real god, and then you start a bar fight again. So basically, they should have called this not a dozen rules of tavern etiquette. They should have named this a dozen ways to start a fight in a tavern. And that is it about tavern rules. I don't know why I sometimes create these super specific videos on super specific stuff from books that cover much, much, much more. I just like doing that, and it is my channel, so I will do that again probably in the future. If you want to grab this book for free, Cypher System, I Have Dreaded the Cursed Adventure, make sure to click the link in the description below, sign up, and back my next Backer Kit crowdfunding campaign within the first 72 hours, and you will be able to pick up this one completely for free. Until next video, bye-bye.